the chance today to hear from everyone if we stay small. I have something in mind that I'd like to explore, but we usually stall, as you know, to let some people jump in the room. So I wonder if anyone has anything you want to start the day with, or comment, or ask, or... Jack says, hello all. I will be super distracted today with another appointment, but hope to catch some snatches. All right, Jack, we will forgive you and we will not call on you.
I am feeling so grateful to be here.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, and it's nice to know every Thursday at 3 o'clock, there's a safe haven to go to. So thank you so much for making this available to us. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I'm always happy to see you here. Well, then let me ask you guys a question, because we have kind of regulars here right now. The next 2 weeks, I'm going to be traveling, and I would love to continue to do this. However, I may have, I mean, if you think I have bad Wi-Fi now, and sometimes it's lags or gets glitchy, it's hard to know. I'm going to be in a remote area that sometimes has very strong, clear Wi-Fi, and sometimes it's slow. So then I would be a bit glitchy and maybe fuzzy. And I think my question, and maybe I can just ask the people on camera, and I welcome your honest opinion, is something better than nothing, or is that frustrating? Because I'll tell you, when I do, for example, like a corporate groups almost never want something glitchy over nothing. More often than not, they'd rather nothing and just wait till we can do it right. But listening to Catherine, you got me thinking, like, should we try? Whose vote? Loretta, what do you think?
I think we should try. If it's glitchy, we can always stop if it's too bad. And if it's a go, then we go.
Fair enough. I can always, pass an assignment, or ask some of you to jump in and help, right? Maybe I would ask, who knows? I can think of all kinds of things that I could ask of the group, knowing you as I know you, Chris and Joni and Loretta. I know some of your talents, and others I'm getting to know you. Other thoughts? Chris, what do you think about, or David, what do you think about this?
Well, Jonathan, let's pose a question to you. Do you, during this travel time, would like to have your slate clear where you don't have that obligation, and we can just hold space knowing that our facilitator and teacher needs a break once in a while? So I'm fine with that.
Well, that's kind too. Well, I suppose we could compromise. And what if we do that? That seems like, I think you just gave me an aha moment, which is, well, what if we take one off, and but we keep one on? So Garth is here and listening. So I think probably the smarter, smoother one for me to miss would be next week, because that'll give me a little more time to get to know my technical setting, and maybe by the week after I'll maximize what we can do, and then we have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I was going to just make the quick comment that the week you were gone and Garth played some videos, that was actually kind of cool, I thought. Meaning, it's nice to revisit some of those things, even though I'd been on some of those sessions. It's a nice filler when needed, is my main comment.
Cool. Well, and you're a pretty dynamic, and I would say well-seasoned group of spiritual travelers. So I think you can handle yourselves well together. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, then I'll talk with Garth about what we might put into next week, and we'll handle that, and then I'll be there the week after. It sounds great. Well, I'm excited to get into today. if nobody else has, and sorry, because I asked for everyone's input, but David, I think you helped me come to my own conclusion. So no more discussion. So I do have something that I'm doing some work on myself, and I'm writing about and thinking about, and I'd really love to share this with you and think with you and feel with you and explore this with you. So I'll tell you what that is in a minute, but I thought perhaps we could start off with a little reading, a little meditation, maybe a little prayer as well, kind of have a longer experiential lead in, and then get into some conversation. How does that sound for everyone here? Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Okay. In that case, I'm going to invite you to get comfortable. We're going to be sitting here with our eyes closed for just a little bit. And so when you can and when you're ready, I'm going to encourage you to sit alert, but comfortably. Let your eyes close. Let's start with the breath. Oh, you use whatever breathing technique you like, or you can follow along with me. Today, let's draw a deep, full breath in, and then a little more, and hold it. This time, holding it as long as you can, and just noticing where you're feeling tension, tightness, resistance, and breathing it out through your mouth. Just sort of let it go and feel your body soften. And again, big, exaggerated inhale, tightening up, finding tension in your body anywhere, resistance, or just the energy of things you want to let go of in your life right now. And breathe it out. Let your body soften, shoulders drop, muscles in the face relax, settling into your seat. And encouraging you just to let your thoughts and thinking settle. And if thoughts and thinking arise, you can notice it and let it go. Just paying more and more attention to quietness and stillness in yourself, around you. And then I'm going to invite you into a breathing technique that some people call the gentle breath, or the soft breath. And you're just going to breathe in through your nose, down into the belly if you can, as softly and gently as you can, so it's quiet. It's a quiet breath. You just barely feel it, you can't even hear it. And same with the exhale, soft, quiet. Softer and quieter until it's almost like the air is breathing you. As you connect with that stillness and that growing sense of the silence that surrounds you, the silence that holds all sound and noise and movement. Let us envision that this is the same silence that holds each of us. The same silence that lives at the heart of the old growth forests. The same silence at the bottom of the sea. The same silence in your room when you sleep. the same silence at the outer reaches of our galaxy and beyond. And I invite you now to move into the darkness of your closed eyes and imagine or envision or allow in that darkness a vision of stars emerging, as though in your mind's eye you were looking into the vastness of space. As best you can, create it, envision it, hold it. Envisioning the space between the stars, and then allowing yourself, as though floating or flying with your awareness, traveling among stars, maybe planets, and noticing that the further you go, the more you see star upon star, galaxy upon galaxy, distance upon distance, space upon space, an endless unfolding landscape. And somehow, if you can, as you envision the swirling energy of supernovas and galaxies, we find ourselves sensing, envisioning the innermost workings of the atoms within us, as though our exploration of space in our mind's eye were in fact not the vastness of space itself, but the very inner workings of the quantum universe, the subatomic universe. Imagine moving, if you can, simply to the awareness of a cell or a molecule. Maybe imagining, if you can, if you choose, imagining a blood cell moving now through capillaries, through veins, through the heart, racing through the body, and then letting your awareness just expand out more as awareness than vision. From the small to the all, we move out from cells to organs to the body, sitting where you are right now with your breath in your seat. In the Tao, translated by Stephen Mitchell, it reads, "The Tao, which you may understand as God or spirit, the Tao cannot be perceived. Smaller than an electron, it contains uncountable galaxies. If powerful people could remain centered in the Tao, all things would be in harmony. The world would become a paradise. All people would be at peace, and the law would be written in their hearts. When you have names and forms, know that they are provisional, temporary. When you have institutions, know where their functions should end, knowing when to stop. You can avoid any danger. All things end in the Tao as rivers flow into the sea." From this place, we open our hearts to each and all. Envision yourself as a transmitter, a radiation of love, unconscious awareness, aligned with the small and the all, aligned with the cosmos, aligned with the subtlest, most imperceptible inner workings of the body. In this moment together, wherever we are, may we simply resonate, vibrate together with this natural order. No agenda, no need, only existence, only the miracle of being. And from this pure place, emitting a blessing to each other for whatever this human life longs for most right now. Emitting a blessing for this planet and all beings on it, that we might together resonate in sympathy and harmony and in honor of our truest nature. A prayer for peace within and around. A blessing. As it is said, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen. So when you're ready, come on back. So the meditation I wanted to share today, or the conversation I wanted to share, is the idea that it is possible, well, I'm trying to think if this is the right setup. Well, I'll start here. I think a lot of you know that I often, in my writing or in my videos, if you follow any of that, I often sort of reflect on, and I would admit sort of struggle with the status of the word God in our world today. And that is, I think, because for me, I did not grow up with a lot of talk about God and not a lot of conditioning around God. And so when I chose that word as a young person, it was just a symbol for a consciousness, a kind of interactive, intelligent consciousness that is all things and yet all things come from. And so it wasn't a big deal, really, for me. And then as I grew older and really began to interact with people, as though I lived in a cave, but as I started to talk to people in different religious communities, and the One Field movie, oh, that's great. I began to realize how complicated our situation is today, because I have no doubt that the experience of maybe I'll just call it divine consciousness or sacred consciousness is without a doubt universal. But in the naming and the storytelling, it just gets so friggin' messy. And I have, in some moments of my life, felt vigilant about taking that word back. I gotta tell you, there are billions of people that are really using that word differently than I think we are today. And I've started to feel like maybe I just need to let that go. I have other things to focus on. And I made a social media post about this, and somebody responded in just the most simple and elegant way. And I don't know that this person really realized how clear it was, but it was a post saying, you know, what do you call God, and what do you think about the word God, all this kind of stuff. And the person said, well, I think we've already voted. I think people have decided to call it, I've now called God the universe. And that's it. They just said, I think that's what people are going with. And I think it was just purely an observational comment. There was no agenda, there was no religion, there was not even spirituality. They were just saying like, well, I'm pretty sure that for the people that are trying to get beyond the complexity of that word, pretty sure that's the word they're all using. And I've thought a lot about that. Is that a good word? Is that not a good word? And what I love about accepting the universe as another word for God is that it brings a closeness for me. I'm just sharing a few things. It brings a closeness for me that is congruent, because God is the world around me. The universe is the world around me. God is the organizing design and system. And so is the universe. Nothing exists outside God for me. Nothing exists outside the universe. I mean, if you asked an astrophysicist what existed before the created universe, well, they would add that to their definition of the universe, right? It's just keep moving back what we know and what we understand. And I would say that as someone who's is a little bit of a fascination with astrophysics, which I don't think we all need to have, I just kind of like it. I think what I enjoy about sort of the Neil deGrasse Tysons and the Brian Swims of the world, and there's lots of them out there, what I enjoy is that when I hear them talk about the universe, it just feels like they're talking about God. They talk about, no, wait a second, there was a chat here that looked good. Yes, the infinite infinities, universes within universes. Thank you for that. Universes, the single verse of harmony, the universe. Yes, it is both a kind of literal framework for life and metaphorical. It works on both levels. So I have been thinking, and I'm going to ask you about this soon. I've been thinking, well, yes, if God and the universe are one, and nothing in our created world operates without the blessing of the universe and the principles of the universe, right? Then what are the principles of the universe? Like, what if we as a group were to think about this together and come up with our own little cheat sheet, our own little, not 10 commandments, but our own little set of principles. And I'll share kind of where I'm going with this and how I've been thinking about it, but then I want to hear from you. So when I think of the universe in terms of natural history, in terms of science, I think the first principle, if I were to call it a principle, I have 5 that I'm pretty attached to, but I'm, oh no, 6, pardon me. I was trying to work towards 7, but I thought I would just stop at 6 and open the conversation. The first principle even if I looked at this through science, which I just see as an ally of spiritual unfolding, is mystery. The first principle for me, if we are learning to think like the universe, to live like the universe, to be in alignment with the universe, for me, the first principle would definitely be mystery, because scientifically speaking or spiritually speaking, if we go far back enough in this story, which at least in material science, we're going back about 14 billion years, which is much farther than any of us can even conceive. We still run out of answers. We still run up into a massive mystery, which is, if the quote Big Bang is true and everything suddenly came out of nothing, what was the nothing? So the mystery matters. And here's why it matters. Because if mystery was present and is present in our understanding and will always be present in our understanding of the universe, then it should be present in the way we handle our daily affairs, our relationships, our health journey, our decisions. And what I mean by that is, if we are in alignment with our universe, we think like our universe, live like our universe, we will always make a little room for just not knowing, for just not having the answers, for just not having control. So that would be principle one, mystery. The second principle for me would be singularity. The idea that even though with each passing year, we are uncovering more and more depth to our understanding of the cosmos, dark matter, black holes, galaxies inside galaxies and beyond. You know, there's that famous discovery, that new photo of the universe that sort of made the news for a while, where they turned the world's most powerful telescope to this little spot in the sky where previously nobody was looking, because there was just nothing to see, right? No cloud of possible something, no distant star, it was just a little dark spot. And who knows, right? Someone 3 a.m. out at the observatory, a little too much coffee, maybe a little too much tequila left alone at night, and they decided to just turn it, look somewhere where no one was looking. And I don't know if you've seen this photo, but they've discovered in this emptiness 1 trillion universes waiting, right? I mean, literally endless number, not just stars and planets, but universes like ours, you know, the whole Milky Way thing and the star in the middle and the whole, like millions upon millions upon millions and millions of them, which means that there are millions of possibilities, trillions of possibilities, that there are Earths, that there are civilizations, that there are other expressions of reality and life that we just can't even possibly imagine. And yet, despite this diversity and this vastness and this multiplicity, it's still one thing. It's still the universe. So that's the second principle for me, is singularity, to always remember, no matter what we do, at some level, everything is still one thing, right? So the oneness, the principle of oneness, right? But I was just going on and on about the trillions and the stars, like Carl Sagan, remember? This is Carl Sagan talk. But as much as the singularity may be true, that everything is one thing, and that we should not see anything as separate from ourselves, diversity is also true. That if nothing else in the natural world, from the ground at our feet to the world around us, what we see is just endless expression of creation, existence, life. Thousands of types of frogs, thousands of types of ants, you know, butterflies and elephants and flowers and people, and all of it evolving and creating new forms of expression So diversity is a part of the story. And if we don't include diversity, which to me is a kind of pluralism meaning the capacity to allow multiple cultures or realities to coexist and all be equally valid, right? So for example, in the indigenous world, it is a pluralistic, typically they are pluralistic cultures, meaning there isn't one understanding of God. So, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but if you go to a Catholic church and they repeat the Nicene Creed, and like there is a God to learn about, and there are principles of God, and there is a way to get it and a way to not get it. But typically in the indigenous world, it was open-ended. So, and in Hinduism, it would be a similar example. So everyone gets that it's one thing, but there's 36 million names for it. So it can be Vishnu and Shiva and Brahma and Krishna and Rama and Saraswati and Narayan. I mean, it can go on and on and on and on and on. And yet, in principle, the understanding is these are only facets and expressions of one thing. So diversity. And we see that in the natural world as well, right? Biodiversity is what a forest needs to thrive, what the ocean needs to thrive, what a farmer's field needs to thrive. We have learned that creating monocrops actually destroy the soil and destroy a plant's capacity to regenerate. So at every level of our universe, diversity and pluralism is essential. But again, this matters for us because when we come up against people who do things differently than us, and I don't mean people that are, out there that we really struggle with. I mean the people we love. And they're like, why do you do it that way? And why would you say it that way? And what do you mean by that? Well, we can make room for it. And the next thing that comes out of that, for me, I've got 3 more, is interconnection. Now, interconnection to me is different than singularity, because singularity means we are one and the same. Diversity means in that same system, we play different roles and we are different expressions. But interconnection means that while we may be different, we are influencing each other and we need each other, which is different than just being different. It's different and connected. I'm just going to leave that one because that's connected. Once you get it, it's like, oh yeah, okay. So I sneeze, it affects you. And interestingly, I mean, the COVID thing, regardless of whether you landed on what's true and not true, blah, 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 at every level of the COVID experience, what we saw was interconnection. What happens in one country influenced another country. A virus over here shows up over there, or even just psychologically, a philosophy or a belief about what's happening goes from here to here. I mean, the world was remarkably interconnected, and it was being demonstrated. But here's the next thing that comes up for me is despite all that, it's evolving. Change. So change and growth is also a core principle, which means nothing really gets to stay the same forever except the singularity itself. So planets die, stars die. I heard a scientist talking recently about how the physical matter of planet Earth and what's in your body right now is quite literally the residue, quite literally the elemental residue of dead stars. What? Like we are the material matter, like this actual stuff, the building blocks, right? Dead stars. And so we must be ready for change, expect change. Doesn't mean we always have to like it, doesn't mean it has to always be easy, but change is a part of our universe, and evolution is the nature of that change, that something innate in us in our world is constantly longing for something more sustainable, something better. In short-term moments, that may look or feel like a technology, a new iPhone, a new corporation, but that's not really what lasts, right? We hunger for these principles. We hunger for the realization of interconnection and diversity and singularity and mystery. And I believe that's what we keep evolving towards incorporating. But the last one I want to put out for you is, and I'll tell you, I don't have a good language for this, but it has to do something with creation and destruction. That there can be no creative evolution without death, and destruction is a complicated word because for us on a human level, it's filled with a lot of emotion, right? If you destroy my home, if you destroy my family, if you destroy like those, that is awful. Those all sound awful to me. And yet, well, and death is something a little more palatable, I think, but that's also not very comfortable for people. Everyone on this call will be dead one day. I mean, in the scope of history, before long. Everyone we love will be dead before long, right? Everyone, everything that we love in the world will one day be gone. So it has something to do with impermanence, you know, I think the principle of impermanence. And what we find in many old religious traditions is the contemplation of death is actually life-giving. The Stoics, for example, contemplated, well, they had a negative visualization practice, right? Like start your day by thinking of just how bad things could be, by thinking of how you could lose anything and everything. And then get up and be grateful for everything you get after that. You were able to wake up. Great. You were able to move. Great. You were able to make some decisions. Great. So there's something about this creative, destructive cycle that is essential. There can be no diversity without it. There can be no interconnection without it. There can be no evolution without it. And yet, if we don't accept it, the stories we tell about disintegration and destruction and death are often paralyzing. I'm going to stop there. So I wonder, I'd love to hear a little bit from anyone and everyone. I'm going to call on people. If you have something you'd like to add, either a comment about what I've shared or a principle that you see that we haven't named that's missing. So let's just chat for the rest of our time. Who wants to jump in first? Hand up. I'm going to call on someone. Hey, Deborah, I'm going to call on you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Deborah, when you think about all this stuff, does this feel congruent with your experience of life in the world, or does this feel off track, or is something missing? Some reaction.
I feel you're correct about the language. I think we're going through a period of not being able to have the language to move on to the next part of our becoming, I guess, of the world. And in order to answer this question, I think I had to think about properties versus principles. Would those be the same thing?
I think you could switch, I think that's linguistic: properties, principles, laws, but I like properties. I know what you mean. Like these are the qualities.
Right. Because I basically look at it from a nursing healing perspective, where you're dealing with energies to help, produce healthy effects and transformation. And so I would think that, properties with the energy, but I've always had this idea of God as the universe.
Mhm.
And I think some of the problems of us as pioneers or as spiritual people is to try to get the lay people to understand that we're not denying a God. Like somebody that has a particular, I'm Catholic now, and that creates a lot of problems because, between the Protestants and Catholics, in Maine, when very early in its history, I mean, you had to, my mother, well, it's not that early, but I'm 74 now, almost 75, but my mother, in her generation, you wouldn't be speaking to Catholics and Protestants really. And they had their own separate communities within the same community.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way. But I think some of the language problem is when somebody, well, you're on the Humanity Stream platform, and I love it. And I love to listen to anybody, pioneer on any subject. But try to speak to your next door neighbor about this sort of thing. Because the formal language of Humanity Stream is the God within. So that immediately makes people think they don't believe in a God. They think they're God.
Mhm.
On a general layperson working level that, they may have done a little bit of reading and are spiritual and so forth. But really in the minds of all humanities team is that it is a universe and there's an intelligence
Mhm.
behind the universe. And if they desire to see it as God, and I want to see it as Catholic and God, because that makes me be helpful to people. And I've had an experience, a near-death experience with angels and the Blessed Mother. Well, so be it. Whatever happens when I transition into this beautiful, intelligent universe, well, I'm not going to judge myself. I mean, I needed that, Catholic upbringing. Well, not upbringing, but that Catholic perspective at this point in my life to be able to give all that I can be. And so I think it's quite simple. I think we make things difficult. And so I'm trying with the same problem to think, how do I relate to the people I know? Now, I mean, I can talk to any of you on this format and you're not going to think I'm absolutely nuts or crazy. But it's about the only place you can say something is in a format like this, or if you have a special friend or maybe a special group. You don't just go out in the world and be talking about the God within and the energies and all that. That's why I've stayed silent for 4 decades with my work. So I think we need to get together and maybe just give a little tweak in how we present things so that we can get people that really need the help. Those that are working every day that wonder, where is God out there, or is somebody helping me, and what do I do? And, there's this trauma and all that. I think we need to change our language, or maybe eventually it'll just be absorbed by models. I don't know. It's a big question for me.
Well, I appreciate that, I love the service kind of model that you work inside, which is when you said, if we can evolve the language, not just because we're right, but maybe we can connect with people who need or will be helped by what lies beyond the language. So thank you for all this. Now, in the spirit of getting together, which you pointed out how good this is, I would love to check in. Deborah, you came on camera suddenly, and I'm going to pick on you and wonder if you would like to say something. Do you know which Deborah I'm talking? Yes, you. I took
Hi.
your movement from off camera to on camera as a certain sign of engagement. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything coming up for you that you might like to share? And then I'm gonna pick on someone else. We're gonna try to squeeze a bunch more people in before the hour. So Deborah, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree from my own experience, like with all of the items that, actually, I'm going to take my headset out. There. I agree with all of and can resonate with all of the principles that you outlined. It's definitely, and I like how Deborah used the word, it's like, it's not necessarily, well, it's principles, but it's bigger, like it's bigger beyond sort of the
Yeah.
laws, right? It's like, this is the general, and then there might be the different laws, like with truth and faith and patience and like those integrity, like that's a kind of separate underneath the principles that you've provided. And it is definitely like a mystery. It's something that as seekers, we will seek, but we will never, ever come to an end to seeking because it is infinite. And as the universe is evolving, right? There's more and more to seek. And I agree with the singularity, the principle of the oneness and the diversity. And that's where I even try to explain to people when I do come across that there's more than like God, spirit, creator, created more than one type of bird, for example. There's more than one type of cat. There's more than one type of dog, right? And why is that any different with people, right? Everyone accepts all dogs, all birds, all animals, right? They come from the same source. They're different colors, different sizes, different shapes. They eat different foods, etc., etc. And it's like, why is that different? Why should that be different with people, right? It was back in 2020, I had a huge awakening, and I had bought this puzzle, and this puzzle, it was round and it had all kinds of different shapes and it was black. And it just really resonated with me. I was going to give it to someone else. Thought, oh, I'll buy this for my brother-in-law. And it's like, well, you know what? No, it resonates with me, so I'm going to keep it. So I took the puzzle together and I thought, oh my gosh, it's like, where do you even start? But luckily, a map diagram came with it. And it was interesting because I always thought there's got to be a map of some sort to the universe. Like there has to be something, right? The commonalities, etc. And when I put that together, it was like I had to download that. Oh my gosh, it's like, even though the puzzle was all black, like the void, right? And it's like we all come from the void. And it didn't matter what direction the pieces were facing, what the angles were, what the size was. It was, the void, like there's a commonality for everything. And it was quite a profound download I had at that time. And yes, are we all interconnected? Absolutely. There's no time and space. And the internet is a tool that has been presented to sort of be the visual, external tool for people to comprehend. But what the internet can do is what we have the ability to do within. Like we can communicate telepathically to anyone and anything like worldwide. And I know that is true. I've experienced it. But it's like humanity needs baby steps, right? And it's like with COVID, it's like everyone, even though it's horrible, like what happened to some people, but it's a beautiful part of our growth we needed to go through, to understand how we are connected and that we do have the ability to connect with everybody. And yeah, the growth, evolution. Each person as an individual is a representative. Like there's the universe and multi-universes, but we individually are the microcosm of the universe. Like each of us represents the universe, and we have made of the elements, the water, the earth. For example, our physical form is made of the cosmos. All of our cells resonate with the planets. I know when I can do a ritual or prayer to Mother Earth, or Grandmother Moon, for example, it's like, even just saying the word, it's like my cells start like, ooh, I'm excited. Because each cell is connected to all the planets. And to me, it's just beautifully fascinating, miraculous. Like, it's like there's no words. It's just like, like, it's just so amazing, right? Like there's no word to describe. And each individual is just like the cells in our body. It's like people don't understand how we need to take care of our own earth, because how we take care of ourselves affects the physical earth, the level of consciousness. So
Very
yeah,
nice.
I agree. I can resonate with everything you've outlined.
You
and you're
have,
right, nothing is permanent.
and you have resonated it well. I think everyone has felt your unfolding the images of what we're talking about, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm gonna, I'm just picking on a few people that we haven't heard from in a while or lately. Kelsey, I wonder how you're doing over there, and if there's anything you might like to add in there. And certainly if there's anybody who's off camera that would like to speak up, just let me know, or put your thought, whatever, let us know somehow. But Kelsey, anything for you today?
Well, I just wanted to thank both the Deborahs for their contribution. That was really great. I don't know. I have, yeah, like a lot of this is like stirring up a lot of things that I've been thinking about today. In particular, what first Deborah was sharing, and what Jonathan shared earlier about, like taking about like death and that creative evolution, and like letting that process sort of like happen and everything. Yeah, there's just like a lot of, seemingly, and it probably is like unnecessary worry for me right now. And it's really difficult to stay like positive a lot of times, and seeing it as like growth, like among my, like with me, but then also like among everyone. It's really challenging, feeling like things just kind of stay the same or have only gotten worse since, the 70s. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot for me today.
Well, I appreciate you owning that and sharing that with us, and I think what it does for me, hopefully, I think for all of us, is it shows how this is more than just like a big philosophical conversation, right? I mean, this is us facing the reality of the world that we live in, and that surge towards creative evolution. It's hard because it does involve so much struggle and death, and I think that in the spiritual world, and I mean the modern world of spiritual seeking, you know, we've tended towards a certain kind of positivism where we want to neutralize negativity or harm by being positive, looking for the best and making it okay and wanting everyone to be comfortable. Spirituality makes us happy. I don't know. I think if I'm more honest, I'd say that what I've learned over the years, that the deeper, the wiser people, the fuller people, what they really are is more neutral. And yes, in that neutrality, happiness arises. But it seems that neutral comes first and happiness second, that when happiness is pursued, it's like a big floaty ball in a swimming pool where you keep swimming towards it and it gets pushed. But what I mean by neutrality, and the way it connects to what you shared, Kelsey, is that, well, and that's, I guess, one of the principles of the universe, right? Is what works and what doesn't. And all kinds of weird and horrible shit is going to be tried along the way. And many of those weird and horrible systems will assert themselves again and try to return, and will try to defeat the evolutionary urge towards wholeness. And so what can look like a very, it's interesting, and I know we're about out of time, and probably there's other people that want to speak, but you mentioned something that just sort of touched me, that I don't want to, I hope you don't take as me negating anything you've said, but building on something you've said. I think that it's hard to be as conscious as we are, as informed as we are, and as aware of what is in alignment and what is not as we are in the world today, because we can look at certain aspects, I'm going to say, of racism, sexism, gender inclusivity, economic justice. And depending what you're looking at, we could say, holy shit, it seems worse than ever, not better than ever. And yet, if we look at the rate of change in cultures preceding 200 years ago, I mean, slavery stuck around, a very long time, Violent sexism was around a very long time. I mean, explicit oppressive financial injustice where, that we had feudal systems and the peasants worked their whole lives just to have enough to eat, and then the royalty came and scooped up all the excess. I mean, this has been a brutal planet in the human story. And even though we are so acutely aware of the pain and suffering today, objectively, as disappointing as this may sound, the rate of social change in the last 200 years has actually been dramatically quicker than what we saw before. However, and rightfully so, we are less satisfied than ever before. We all feel it more than ever before. Whereas once upon a time, the oppression of billions was just what it was. And there wasn't a lot of compassion, suffering together. But there's no doubt it's going to continue to be hard as we grow. David, you've got your paw up, and I wonder if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I know we're getting to the end of the group, but I just had some imagery that came up
Yeah.
that summarized this whole conversation today and the whole spectrum of what we're talking about, you know, the interconnectedness and the intelligence of the divine order. And the image that came up is, the documentary that I watched for inspiration in the natural world of the lion on the savannah tracking prey. And I always cringe watching it, like, oh my God, what animal is going to be the victim? And, I close as a human being. My heart closes down, and it's just too painful to watch, the violence and really the natural order. And so I close myself to the experience. And then on, 20 minutes or into the documentary, it flips the scene where the lioness, the highest predator in the natural world, is surviving, is on a survival instinct because the savannah went dry and the game, became thin. And now the tides have turned where this great lion, the animals that have energy because they're eating off grass and whatever resources, they're now looking at the lion with pity, saying, you were once, the great warrior, and now, I have compassion for you. I don't fear you because look at you, you're skinny and you're emaciated and you might not make it. And then the lioness has her little cub, that's depending on survival. And then it just brings tears down my eyes. And then I just say, how can I close myself to all this, craziness? And so that analogy of that natural world, I'd like for all of us to bring into, the human experience of what we're talking about, having these conversations with neighbors and people that are very closed and want to debate you and live in fear. What am I supposed to do? Cringe and not have these discussions and express my truth and shine, really my my knowingness that I'm going to be okay, or what? I mean, how do you navigate these waters in a world that's collapsing?
Yeah. It's a beautiful analogy. I really like that analogy because it raises the significance of the emotional dimension of the human experience, and that whatever we hold in our awareness, we experience as real. And then we naturally and rightfully emotionalize it. So there's that fearful moment of no, the lion's terrible. Don't eat the baby impalas. Oh God, I don't want to see it, And then it's like, oh no, the impalas are going to make it, and then the baby cubs are not. I think what your story emphasizes for me, that came out of Kelsey's comments, was this: we don't necessarily have to make this good and this bad, or this bad and this good. That somehow, as difficult it is, just beginning with witness, beginning with neutrality, and acknowledging the emotion of it and the personal pain of it, but without needing to tell a story because of it. Does that make sense? Like, something can be painful and it doesn't have to make that thing right or wrong. And it's so contrary to the way we often live that I almost feel silly saying that. But neutralizing things as a starting point and moving to the place of witness can just be so powerful, and ultimately give us space both for acceptance and change, experiencing our feelings fully and letting them go. But it's hard. I mean, what you're talking about, it's a beautiful example, and it doesn't come easily. And I'm going to maybe just add one little thing, and then I guess we do have to go. The thing that I wanted to add is that the emotional element is not to be overcome. It's important. It matters. And I believe it's a part of the evolutionary longing inside us, that if we didn't feel pain, if we didn't feel injustice, if we didn't feel, how else would the energy register? And so incongruence, or the disintegration of a system in space may look like a beautiful display of light, of explosions and color. And in our lives, it might be just like anger and pain and sadness. And yet on the energetic level, it's simply the experience of change. And then we have to return to the system and listen for what's next. How will we hold this? What does the pain mean? What does the suffering mean? And just because we can accept it as real and as part of the way life is, it doesn't mean that we have to necessarily allow it if we're called to make change. And that too is our own evolutionary process. It's amazing because whenever we start our time together, I always feel like, wow, we got a whole hour. What the heck's going to happen? What are we going to do? How are we going to fill that hour? And almost every time we get to about 5 after, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where's our next hour? So listen, I'd like to say thank you. I'm sorry we can't get more folks in today, but also thank you for some new voices. And thank you for everyone for being so present with each other and for the comments as well. If you're a member of the Old Soul Republic, then you'll be getting a newsletter probably later today with some reflections on how to think like the universe, and you'll feel this conversation is a part of it. If you don't know what that is, you can just check it out. It's oldsoulrepublic.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. There's nothing to it but some weekly content. And there's so much more to say that all I can say is thank you. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to Garth for running the mechanics of it all. And I don't have a better way to end than just to send a lot of love and blessings. And I guess we're going to pass next week, and then we'll see you the week after. So thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.